All right, well, welcome back to Kingdom Over Coffee. We've got a great episode today. We're continuing on the theme of kids. We're getting up to the Christmas season, the holiday season, and I really wanted to spend some time talking about discipling our kids and teaching our kids. And we have Jesse Florea with us today from Focus on the Family. How are you doing, Jesse?
Britt, doing great. Thank you for having me. It's an honor, but in full disclosure, I have to let you know that I'm drinking green tea this morning. So I hope that's okay. I don't have the coffee going, but
it's okay.
That's some nice green tea. Okay.
Well, the whole point of the name is that it's the kingdom over coffee. So I'm drinking coffee, but the kingdom is more important than coffee, which I know to some people may be sacrilegious, but it's true. By the way, I love green tea. Just as an aside, I spent 4 years in Korea, so I am a green tea fan. I had it often. So Jesse, just kind of introduce yourself a little bit. What do you do? What's your role? What are you up to now?
Boy, yeah, I've been. I guess my role, my everyday role at Focus on the Family, is the editor of Clubhouse and Clubhouse Junior magazines, and those are the magazines for children. And I've been doing that for about 25 years with Clubhouse and Club Junior, writing content for 3 to 7-year-olds for Clubhouse Junior and for 8 to 12-year-olds for Clubhouse, and been at Focus for 28 years. Started back writing letters for Dr. Dobson back in 1993, and then very quickly God moved me over, and it was definitely a God thing, to being an editor for Breakaway magazine when we had that for teen boys. And that was perfect for about 3.5 years. And then God opened the door to go over to Clubhouse and Club Junior. And I had kids in the Clubhouse Junior age, and I had little brothers in the Clubhouse age. And I had been a children's lit minor at Wheaton College, and just loved kids. And that opportunity was perfect. And I say ever since then, I haven't worked a day in my life. It's been 25 years of just really enjoying creating content and getting great feedback from our readers. I mean, our readers are fantastic. So yeah, that's kind of it. And then since then, through opportunities, connected with Focus, been able to write a bunch of different books, mainly devotional books, doing over 40 books. Was a general editor of an apologetics Bible for kids, and doing some sports profile writing. That's really kind of where my heart was. That's how I first became a writer, was through sports writing, and been able to do some of that, doing some biographies of Christian athletes and things like that. So it's just been an awesome road. It's been definitely a God-directed road. When you look back, you can kind of see his hand moving those different places in my life. And I've just enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. Did you watch the World Series?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm not a huge Braves fan. Again, I grew up in Colorado, and I had family in New York. So it sounds weird, but I was like a Yankees fan. And then of course, when the Rockies started, but I think most people were rooting for the Braves. I did a story back 94, 95. I got to interview John Smoltz when the Braves were having that great run back then. And so I've always appreciated the Braves, but yeah, I was rooting them on big time. So that was a great win.
Well, it was mania down here, because I'm in the Atlanta area, so it was mania down here, and it was awesome. What a great story! I'm like, it's a movie waiting to happen. I just want to write the script. That's the thing. And who's writing the script for this? Because it's got to be a movie at some point. So,
for sure.
So you said you were a major in children's literature at Wheaton, right? Is that what you said? Wheaton?
I minored in children's literature, and I was a major in actually journalism, communications, print communications. So this whole Clubhouse world, God just married those things together.
Yeah. Now, what was it about, children's literature, even before you got into college or while you were in college? Like, what was that sort of development? Like, why did your heart kind of go there as you were thinking about your future? And then that's what you wanted to do.
Growing up, I wouldn't say I was like a super avid reader, but I really loved certain books. I was introduced to the Chronicles of Narnia when I was 8 years old. And again, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. Everybody has their stories, and sort of mine is, growing up with my mom divorced and remarried a couple times when I was growing up. So ended up with 6 parents total now. Again, so I stayed close to all those different families. And we never really went to church until after the second divorce. So I would have been about 13, 14 years old when I went to church. But, at 8, I was introduced to Chronicles of Narnia. And I just loved that story. And I loved Aslan and then different poetic writers, Shel Silverstein, just different books. Dr. Seuss when I was a little kid, my grandma would always read to me. So literature was really important and story was very important. So when I got to college and they had this I went in initially, I thought I was going to be a school teacher. I went in as an education major to be a junior high teacher. But always had that love of writing that also started when I was in high school, working for the school newspaper and then for a local newspaper. So again, as God directing the path and again, changed from education into communications, and then had this whole opportunity to do children's lit and take all these different courses and see how influential story could be on kids' lives. And it really is. I mean, there's studies done, scientific studies that by age 4, a child can put themselves into the place of a character in a story and learn from that character, like be empathetic and understand what's going on and learn something about life and character through a person in a storybook. So story can have so much power. So I think that's kind of what drew me into it was just realizing the power that story had in my own life. Because again, when I was 14 and started going to church again and learning about Jesus and who he was, and he came and he sacrificed and all these things. And, it clicked. It's like, wait, that's Aslan, right? But I had no idea because I didn't have that background. I didn't have that Christian, like to a Christian, it's so obvious, right? I mean, it's like, duh, Aslan is Jesus. But I didn't have that background. So it clicked later and I saw it the reverse. And wow. I think that's kind of what drew me into it. And then having that opportunity to, again, write stories for kids and books and different things. It's just been really cool because let me just say, it was not my plan when I was in college to go into this. I just really saw the power of story and loved story, and always had a passion for kids and wanting kids to get, good teaching and for kids to be kids, right? I mean, growing up is difficult now. And so, the stories can really help inform and encourage kids at a young age.
Yeah, well, I think you pretty much answered my second question about why is it so important for us to have great Christian content for kids, not just some Christian content, right? But just that great Christian content, because the stuff you were talking about, those are classics, right? You've got. Mm-hmm. I mean, Narnia was huge for me as well. I mean, when I was a kid, of course, I went to church, and so my mom kind of told me, like, this is symbolic of stuff, and I think you really like this. But that's what got me into fantasy. And I was a kid, and I just read and reread the Narnia books and C.S. Lewis and the Space Trilogy and got into all that. But these are classics, and these are things like you're saying. It's not just church culture people who read Narnia or all of these sort of, or Dr. Seuss or whatever. And yet they had such a deep impact on you. So why do you think it's important that we kind of continue that? Like, obviously it's kind of a duh question, but in our world where there's content everywhere, right? I mean, there's more content than there's ever been before, and more access to it and all that stuff. So why do you think it's so important that we continue that sort of great content that I know is so important to you guys that focus on the family and Clubhouse? So why do you think it's so important we kind of continue that sort of high standard of great content?
Yeah, you said it well, that there's just so much content out there, right? Kids are bombarded, whether it's, YouTube or different streaming services. I have grandkids who are 6 years old and 2 years old. And again, they're they're getting hit with content, whether it's, a commercial on TV. It seems like every single doll has a video or a show. And some of it is just, the messages are terrible, right? Very surfacey, popularity, friends, dating. I mean, they're pushing dating on kids, and whether it's a Nickelodeon or a Disney show, those kids are, dating when they're 8, 10 years old, it seems like. No. And then it some of the gender fluidity things that are coming up, whether it's, shows geared at children. So again, I think that because the culture has swung so far away from Christian principles, that there needs to be that, again, as you put it, excellent Christian content. It has to be engaging, right? It can't be something just thrown together for kids because, kids will barely understand it anyway, right? I mean, and I don't think the church or the Christian publishers think that at all, but you really have to be maybe more creative now than any other time to reach those kids because they have so many options. So if your book or if your story isn't engaging, doesn't capture them right away, they're going to go to something that is engaging and does capture their attention. So it does have to be excellent, and it does have to be prayed over and well thought out and delivered in a way that kids want to read it. So whether it's something that's engaging in short video or again, kids still read books. I was so encouraged. Oh my goodness. I was encouraged this last summer. We did a summer reading challenge in both Clubhouse and Clubhouse Junior Magazine. And we wanted kids to read more than 2,000 pages of material for Clubhouse and in different genres, right? Because some kids just have their certain genre. Like, probably sounds like you and I are pretty similar growing up. We loved that fantasy. We loved that sci-fi. So we wanted kids, if they were those huge, fantasy geeks, to get out of their comfort zone and maybe read a Christian biography or read the Bible. That was another area, read in the Bible. And so we encourage kids to read cross-genre, over 2,000 pages. And we had just under 2,000 kids do that this summer in just Clubhouse. And then another 1,000 kids in Clubhouse Junior read more than 1,000 pages of books. And again, some of those kids had to get the books read to them because they're pre-readers, 3 to 7-year-olds. So we had 3,000 children read books and send us in these letters talking about their favorite book and what they loved about the reading challenge and everything. And honestly, it just did my heart good that there were that many children excited about reading, and just seeing the list. They had to send in the list of what they were reading. It was very insightful. And then they also told us what kind of stories that they liked. And it was just an incredible summer. And again, right now, we're even going through that right now, and we're sending out prizes to all those kids. But yeah, it's just good material is so important because, again, it's life-changing stuff. It's stuff that encourages their Christian values. Again, if you could do it in a non-preachy way, and that's probably what you and I love about fantasy and sci-fi, is you can have that great symbolism in there that a kid can, whether or not they understand it in the beginning, they eventually will, right? Like you said, your mom helped you figure that out. And again, a light bulb went on when I started learning about Jesus when I was a teenager. And that's the kind of thing that sticks with you, right? And that's what parents want their kids to have, is that sticky faith that they make their own. And I think that can really happen through reading and story that's done with excellence.
Man, that is an amazing answer, because I think you're so right. You said it about even a 4-year-old can put themselves in a story. And, Jesus never taught without stories, the Bible says.
Oh, yeah.
It says he never taught without them. And the reason is because stories are complex, and stories don't have to be complicated, but they're infinitely deep because they teach.
Yes.
And so that way they can teach eternal things. And like you're saying, we as humans, we love to dig. We love mystery. We love to search things out. And so stories give us that opportunity to kind of go, oh, what's hidden in there? What are they really trying to say? And kids love that sort of stuff. I loved it as a kid. All my mom did was say, hey, Aslan is kind of Jesus in this book, and you should read it. And I went through the whole series picking out symbolism, right? As a kid, like just, oh, where is it? What are they trying to say? What's this? And the voyage of the Dawn Treader, and the scales come off of him as the dragon. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's salvation. And, I'm just like freaking out.
Right.
But like you're saying, like it wasn't just prepackaged for me. It was a story that engaged me. And Jesus did the same thing, right? The gospel is a story. There's a girl, and she's a virgin, and now she's pregnant. And he's like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? like it's a story that's engaging. And we're getting into Christmas, where it's a powerful story. And that's one of the things that I'm going to get on a soapbox here a little bit, but it's one of the things that bothers me about Christmas. I love great Christmas movies. I'm not against Elf. I love that stuff. I laugh. It's awesome. But it's like the actual Christmas story is so powerful, is so amazing. Like it's full of drama. It's full of engagement, and it's about a young person, and it's all this stuff, it's like, just let the original, like they did in Peanuts, right? Just let the original story shine. Like, just let it shine. That we kind of have to fight for that sometimes. So Focus on the Family has been known for that great content. I mean, I still have people who, no joke, their kids love Adventures in Odyssey, right? I mean, they think, it is still top-notch writing, top-notch production. And even though it's a radio audio thing, right? And even though audio was still a huge thing with podcasts, obviously, like we're doing. But so as you're in the midst of it, and stories are on YouTube and Reels, and there's all these other sort of ways that things are out there. What's Focus on the Family looking at for the future, as far as like how you can get that content in some of these ways, and maintaining the truth and the message, but sort of getting out there in some of these different avenues that are just exploding?
Yeah, it's really, like you said, capturing a child's imagination and engaging them in the story. And I think that's been the success of Adventures in Odyssey from the start, because even when Odyssey was started, and we're actually hitting the 35th anniversary of Adventures in Odyssey. We'll be in 2022. And when it started way back then, people thought it was outdated, like an outdated way to tell a story, right? Radio drama. That was something done in the 20s, right? Or 30, it's like nobody does radio drama. But it captured people's attention because it was good writing and the characters were compelling. And that's why it's been so successful. And I think it's about to hit, it's either next year or the year after, 900 episodes of Adventures in Odyssey.
Wow.
Right? So it's had that longevity because of the good storytelling. And so when you ask about how Focus is going to engage young people in the future with content, some of it is just doing that old school mediums. The pandemic with kids being stuck at home and doing school on screens and watching entertainment on screens, just being so just screened out, really. You can see this backlash from parents, where parents just want their kids to get away from that and engage in a book or a magazine or a radio drama, right? Something where they're letting their imagination and using, their own mind to envision the story instead of seeing it on a screen. And sometimes that world sometimes I would say all the time, that world is so much more vivid and creative than what people can put on a screen. When I was reading The Lord of the Rings, and I was 10 years old, right? I mean, that's still so pivotal. And just picturing that crazy world. And, when the movies came out, they were good. I mean, they were pretty well done, but I still have issues with them because, again, the world I had in my mind was even better, right? The Ents were so much cooler, right? Those walking trees. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here, but so at Focus, again, doing more book content, again, continuing with Adventures in Odyssey, Clubhouse Club Junior. And then, of course, we are looking at, maybe getting back into doing some animated stuff and some short videos and different things like that. So again, you can't totally dismiss how kids are engaging in content. And a lot of that is with video. So there is a plan, and things are being developed right now that I can't really talk about, but there is a plan to develop some video content and some good stuff for kids. But again, we're going to stick with what's tried and true. We're going to stick with Adventures in Odyssey and Clubhouse and books and novels and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a great strategy, especially for kids, because I think you're right. I think that during the pandemic, and we're still somewhat in it, I guess, but especially during lockdowns and that sort of things, when it was really sort of a crisis moment, book sales went up. Whether it was digital books or physical books or whatever it was, like book sales went up, and for good or ill, the public school has their place and they're a force in kids' lives, whether we like that or not, depending on your perspective, right? But one of the great things about that is, man, schools really push reading, right? Schools push reading, and I love that about public, private, all schools. Like with kids, they are continuing to push reading, and they are helping in that sense to fight back against this screen, engagement thing that's happening. They're still trying to get kids to read more, because I can't quote any studies off the top of my head, but from what I remember, reading activates more of your brain. Because you're imagining things, because you're engaging with it. It's like it actually activates more of your brain than just watching something on a screen does. And they've done some of those studies.
I love the study about kids watching TV and your brain activity almost flatlines.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it doesn't engage at all. And then when you read a book, like you said, there are so many studies just about the importance of just whether it's, cognitive or how to think, or as you said, when your mom said, hey, this is Jesus's Aslan, and all of a sudden you're picking apart all this other stuff and finding all this other symbolism that C.S. Lewis put into Narnia, right? And you did that on your own. And that's what's so cool, because kids, the thing that drives me so nuts sometimes when I'm talking to people about what I do, or maybe at a writer's conference teaching, where they think it might be easier to write for kids or to reach a child. And I'm like, it's the exact opposite. You have to be so much more creative, so much more engaging, so much more out of the box thinking, because, they need to be entertained, and they are so creative themselves. And really kids are they're thinking, feeling, smart little human beings. The only thing they lack is life experience, right? They don't have the life experience an adult has, the wisdom that comes with that. And maybe some of the cynicism too, which is kind of sad. As you grow up, you do become a little more cynical as an adult. Kids are just wide-eyed and trusting and hopeful. And that's what you want to feed. You want to feed those things for them. They're going to figure out that the world is a difficult place, right? It's a fallen place. It's a sinful world. For as long as you can, just let them dream and be kids. And that's kind of the goal of Clubhouse Magazine. Keep kids, right? Just let them engage and have fun in life, enjoy God's creation, and learn about their creator and grow in their relationship with the Lord. That's what you want when they're young. And then they can go figure out the yucky stuff when they're older.
Well, I'm trying to remember the exact quote, and I'll probably botch it, but wasn't it Chesterton? Something about kids already know that dragons exist. They need to know that they can be beaten.
Yes.
They need to know that they can be killed. Or I'm butchering the quote. I'm not as eloquent as Chesterton or Lewis was.
None of us. Yeah.
but that's the idea. The idea is, it's not that kids do lack some of the life experience, but they do know that dragons exist. They know that there's evil out there, and they need to know that stuff can be beaten. And then that's the gospel. I mean, the gospel is one of hope, and kids love that stuff. Kids love to connect with the things that give people hope and inspire people. Kids, especially, I know you write, a lot in that 8 to 12 bracket, man, at that age, those kids are all into justice and what's fair and what's right and what's, and they can get so overwhelming for parents to try to like deal with that in a kid. Right. But that's also an opportunity, right? Because God's about justice. He's about what's right. He's about all of that sort of stuff. And so all of these are opportunities for us to engage kids in a way that, like I said before we kind of got on the podcast, is so often I feel like I need to learn from my kids. Like I need to learn their creativity. I need to learn from them because they think outside of the box naturally. I have to work at it, right? And I think you're totally right that so often we think, oh, well, it's a kid's book. It's a board book, or it's for little kids. And that's easy to write. No, that's actually more difficult. Like, the genius of where the wild things are. Like I read that book as an adult and go, how did he do that? Like, how did he write that? Like, that is so genius. There's so much depth to it. And there's so much, and it's so amazing. And as a writer, I'm a professional author, and I'm like, how did he do that? Like, that's so amazing. And I think you're right, but I think it's worth the challenge. And I think what you're saying is that it's really worth the challenge because from your testimony and my testimony and my kids, like my kids still talk about the stuff that they read when they were kids, when they were little, and how important it was to be read to. And my wife was so awesome that she read to them at night, chapter books, and got them in love with stories and all that sort of thing. So just how important it is to still do that and engage and not, it's not that we reject it, but maybe realize it's not a lost battle. Like we don't have to just give in to the screens. We can still kind of go back and recapture some of that. So remind me, do you have kids?
I do. So yeah, my kids are grown and married, and and we have 2 little grandkids that we get to see a few times a week. And it was so fun. It was Saturday, just a couple of days ago. I took them to the public library for the first time. I was getting ready to head out of town, and I wanted to grab a couple books for myself. And so I brought them to the library at 2 and 6 years old and took them into the children's section. And they were blown away, right? I mean, of course, my granddaughter's she's in first grade, so she's seen the school libraries and stuff like that. But oh my goodness, she was so excited to go find some books and talk to the librarian and get walked around into the stacks. And my grandson is, 2.5. So basically he wanted, dinosaur and shark books, but we were able to find some of those as well,
That's right.
And they had so much fun in the library. And then we went home, and that's pretty much what we did for the rest of the afternoon is just read books.
Yes.
And I think it's just, honestly, I think that's somewhat of why they like coming to our house is because, at their home that the TV's on and it's right there and it's kind of always on. And we never really turn on the TV when they're with us. We just let them play and create, whether it's, crayons or Legos, whatever. And then we read a ton, and they just have so much fun. And there's just something special about curling up on the couch with a little kid and opening up a board book and engaging with them. And again, we have so many books because again, I've been doing this for so long, and a lot of Christian publishers send me their books at Clubhouse and Club Junior, so we're aware of what's in the marketplace. So we've got a huge library at home. We're blessed with that, and just reading with them and interacting with them with the book is just it's so cool, and it's so important for a kid's development.
Yeah, and one of the things that as I've been getting more into the middle grades market, like we talked about, before we started recording. One of the things that I've learned that has been a big boom in recent years is graphic novels. Like that's actually been something that's really kind of exploded in the general market. And I mean, I know I read comic books as a kid. I mean, I had everything, not everything, but I definitely had my favorites. And my kids, especially my son, he loved the Action Bible. We had the Lego Bible. Have you ever seen the Lego Bible?
Yes, totally have. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Right? My son knows more about the Bible than most adults because he read the Lego Bible over and over and over again. And he's like, oh yeah. And then when it talks about this, and like adults are like, you're 12. How do you know that? He goes, Lego Bible. Like he just,
Lego Bible.
he would read because he loved Legos. Right. So, graphic novels are huge. And so you've gotten involved in some graphic novels.
Yeah. Just, again, it's so true. Every time I look back at something that I've done, it's always like, I am totally not that smart. This is a God thing. It totally is. So yeah, the graphic novel thing happened just kind of organically through Clubhouse magazine. When I took over as editor 25 years ago, one thing I wanted to make sure that was in the magazine every month was an engaging comic, like a 2-page serialized comic. And we've done a number of different things over the year, some modern day kid tales, some mystery solving stuff, different things like that. But maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, we created a comic called Captain Absolutely, based on some Adventures in Odyssey stories about a superhero who's stood for truth, justice, and lots more truth. So yeah, so it's basically Captain Absolutely defends a Christian worldview in a world where Bibles had been outlawed. And then he worked in a library, and there was an explosion at the library, and he fell into the secret room, and that's where all the Bibles were. And so he started reading the Bible, and that's how he became the superhero Captain Absolutely. So we did a Captain Absolutely comic for about 4 years, and won a lot of awards. I mean, excellent art, really good writing, compelling writing, not preachy, as he's battling basically Dr. Relative. So the whole idea of, everything's relative. There is no absolute truth. That's the arch nemesis. And then all these other sub nemesis, right? Baron von Confuser, who's trying to confuse people with false teachings, and Fear Chemist, who uses fear to scare people away from God, and all these different other, little minions of Dr. Relatives. So we took that and we put it into a graphic novel. After all those years, we had all this great content. And we thought, well, we can't let this content just be stuck in the magazine and disappear. So we put together a book. And actually in this January coming up here, January 2022, we're re-releasing it. We added 40 pages of worldview content, just excellent stuff, like what is a worldview and how to battle against these false teachings and how to stand strong in your faith. And I know that sounds kind of boring maybe, but it's written in a really compelling way and has great, graphics with it and things. So I'm super excited to see what this new Captain Absolutely graphic novel does. And right before the pandemic hit, we came up with another graphic novel called Degrees of Kelvin. And actually, that is Evangelism 101. That whole graphic novel is basically based on the journeys of Paul, the missionary journeys of Paul, but it's told through the storyline of a young African-American boy on a space station way off in the future. And then he finds Christ and leads another person to Christ and goes off to this alien world with him to teach his people about God. And then you just see all the parallels of Paul, right? The shipwreck and being eaten by the gummy wormus, which is the viper. Of course, he gets, and nobody lives. When a gummy wormus eats you, nobody lives. And of course, the gummy wormus spits out Kelvin and he's totally fine. And everybody's amazed, just like the viper when it bit Paul. And then being thrown into prison. I mean, the parallels are there. Again, if you know the story of Acts, kids will recognize it in Kelvin. And then there's just so much truth about how to share the gospel. And again, we added a lot of pages there on kind of like I call it an Evangelism 101 curriculum, but again, written compellingly and fun. So yeah, I think graphic novels, the more we can do to do something that's engaging visually, especially for boys. And again, that Action Bible, so amazing. I mean, still
my God.
Right? It's just so good.
Amazing. The art and everything in it, it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love when Christian publishers and people just take that time, that creativity to pour into a graphic novel that has some awesome takeaway for kids, right? I always call it like it's a vitamin packed in a chocolate bar. You consume it because it's so good and yummy. And then you realize, wait, that was good for me, And so that's kind of what a graphic novel is, I think. Yeah.
The Lego Bible, one of the things that was so amazing, like even for me as an adult, like I loved Legos as a kid, and you know, obviously my son was all into them, and my daughters liked them too. But my son was totally into them. But one of the cool things is you look at the pictures and you're like, how did they build that? Like they were so creative in how they built stuff. And it's just those little things, like you're saying, that engage kids, and it's worth the time. I mean, you know, I hate saying I'm busy, and I've tried to just stop telling people that I'm too busy or I'm busy, because I think it's a trap. I just think it's a trap to keep us from really enjoying what we're supposed to enjoy, which is each other and our families and our kids and our friends and our relationships and our church family and all that sort of stuff. Like we're meant to just enjoy that. Like that's been given to us to enjoy. And so often we allow the have-tos and the busyness to sort of creep into some of that. And that's why reading is, I feel better when I read. I mean, I feel better at night if I just take 30 minutes and read instead of watching a show or something else. And I love TV. I've seen every TV show and every movie. I'm awful about it. I even do a podcast. One of my podcasts is Men at the Movies, and we look at movies and find the gospel in movies, right? I mean, it's like it's there, and it can be engaging for me, but I feel better. I'm more calm and at peace if I just read, and I rest better and I sleep better and all that sort of stuff. So I love all of that. And so as we're kind of closing up here, I wanted to just mention that you do have a Devos for Brave Boys, which you co-wrote with our guest from the last podcast with Karen, right? And that came out when?
That literally just came out. That was, October. And what was so cool about that is it was kind of based off a book that Karen had when her son was like a teenager. And it took about 10 to 12 years for this book to come to fruition, right? So Karen and I have known each other through Christian Writers Conferences for years. And again, she developed all these ideas. And but again, she always said, I'm a woman. So I wanted to find a male co-writer to help me with this. So when she told me her idea and showed me all the research and all the ideas that she had, I'm like, oh, it's perfect for boys, because again, boys need that activity and that action. So the Devos for Brave Boys really encourages boys to, number one, talks about some of the risk takers in the Bible, right? The Bible had a lot of risk takers. God called people to take risks, like not stupid risks, right? But to step out and take a chance and to be bold. So there's a lot of those stories of people from the Bible, but also just fun activities and things to get kids outside and engaged, and puzzles and things like that. And that's what this devotional book is all about. And I just think devotionals are so important for kids to sort of own their own faith, to sort of look into God's word on their own. And of the 40 books I've done, I bet you more than half of them have been devotional type books, just on different, like I've done a couple different sports devos, because I'm a huge sports fan. Devos for, brave boys that are more active and geared right to boys. And the first book I ever did was a devotional book that hit me. It was based on 52 I believe statements. So this is going back 20 plus years, where Steve Arterburn had these 52 I believe statements. I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I believe it's important to go to church. I believe the Holy Spirit is our guide. All these I believe statements. And I was asked to write 7 devotions about each one of these I believe statements. And that book came out, and now it's been rebranded. It's called Everyday Devotions for Kids, the 365 Everyday Devotions for Kids. But that book is still out there. Wow. Because, 20 years later, and it's still selling, because again, it's based on this solid, these solid Christian I believe statements, but then told in so many weird, creative ways, whether it's through sports or there's some movie references in there, all kinds of different things to engage kids. But yeah, I think a devotional book is so important to be, just age appropriate and engaging to that kid. And this book again came out. I think it just turned out great.
And so where can people find this stuff? I mean, obviously they can just go to Amazon or somewhere and look, but is there a website? Where are you online where people can kind of check out your books and check out some of the stuff that you're doing. Cause I know you have a podcast as well, the Average Boy podcast. So maybe talk a little bit about the podcast and where people can kind of find you online.
Yeah, I should do much better. I'm super impressed with you, Britt, how you have, you're really easy to find online. You have the great homepage. I'm terrible. I have nothing. So to find the book, I always, go to christianbook.com. You can go to focusonthefamily.com and click on the store. A lot of my books are on the Focus on the Family website, but I need to do much better with a virtual presence. And so that's, now I'm convicted. I need to get on that. I've been doing this for a while, but have never done that. So yeah, but just going online and again, through, like you said, Amazon, other places. This book is through Tyndale House Publishers. Of course, you can go to Tyndale House and buy it directly from them as well. But
nice.
You asked about the podcast. So I'm a huge podcast. So I was so honored when you asked me to be on your podcast, because I host 2 podcasts that focus on the family. I've been doing the Adventures in Odyssey podcast for over 15 years. We're about to hit we do it bi-weekly. We're about to hit our 400th episode of the Adventures in Odyssey podcast, where I get to interview the directors and the actors and get that behind the scenes look at Adventures in Odyssey. And it's been really cool to hear some of the face stories of the actors there and the behind the scenes stuff at Odyssey that you don't get when you're when you listen to the show. So that's been really cool. And then the last 3 years, I've hosted a podcast with Christian comedian Bob Smiley called the Official Average Boy Podcast, and which is so much fun. So Bob started writing the Average Boy, the Adventures of Average Boy column. It's a humor column in Clubhouse magazine. He's been doing that since maybe 2003, 2004. So it's been over 18 years. And then a few years ago, we thought, hey, let's start. We've done 2 devotional books, Average Boy devotional books called Devotions for Super Average Kids. And those have been out for about over a decade. And then we thought, hey, let's do this podcast thing. And it just has taken off. And again, so I think it's so unique, and they're short. It's like 10 minutes long, and it's just crazy average boy stories, but then with some solid spiritual takeaway, right? I mean, we just hit spiritual issues straight up, whether it's about witnessing or salvation or obeying your parents or being responsible in school or doing homework, whatever it is. And then I can, they do these funny sound effects. I mean, the producers do a wonderful job with it, but, we just recorded our 60th episode of that, and that's at averageboy.org. You can go to averageboy.org and find out all about and listen to all those podcasts. But it's so funny. Some of the comments we get is kids will discover the Average Boy podcast and then listen to binge them, listen to all 57 in a row, and I'm like, go outside and do something fun too, but it's been really cool to hear the stories of the podcast and the families. I'm involved in Awana. My granddaughter's in Awana, and my wife is a leader there, but I get to go there about once a month and do the large group teaching time to about 120 kids, 60 K through 3rd graders and another 60, 4th through 6th graders. And I get to go there and talk and share the message. And it's so funny how many kids, in fact, I was talking about the Trinity, right? The Trinity, that's a difficult concept even for adults to get.
Right.
And teaching of the Trinity, and this little boy in the front row raises his hand almost immediately when I start speaking. And again, but it's so deep, and I want to, share. So I wasn't taking his question, and he then starts hopping up and down with his arm in the air. And I'm like, oh, this must be a really important question. I better take this boy's question. So I'm like, yes. What's your question? He's like, do you host the Average Boy podcast? And I'm like, yes. He's like, I recognize your voice. And that was it. That's all he wanted to say. But he was so into it that he had to share that at that moment. It was so funny. So
that's awesome.
It's been really cool to do those podcasts. And I'm sure you experience that as well when you meet somebody that hear your voice on the street and they're like, wait, you do that podcast, don't you? And it's just really cool how God can use it.
Absolutely. And, and podcasts are one of those things where there's not a lot of immediate feedback. It's not like people email you or comment on it or something, every now and then, somebody might give you 5 stars or something, but you're right. It's usually that people have listened to it and you hear about it a month later and they're like, oh man, I
Yep.
listened to that episode. And I was like, really? Like, because you've moved on or whatever, you've moved on to other episodes and other topics. And people are like, man, that episode that you did on leadership and, Saving Private Ryan, that, where you went into leadership and how that movie has lessons of leadership. And that was really impactful for me. I'm like, really? Oh, okay. Because like I said, it's not something you get the immediate feedback from, but you put it out there and it's so awesome that people get encouraged. And well, I'm going to put some links to this stuff in the show notes. So at least, there'll be some online presence for you.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to put out some links on the stuff for people in the show notes when the episode comes out. Man, this was so awesome. Thank you so much for this. I so appreciate this. This has been a treat, really.
For me too. Yeah. I love being able to, just share some of that passion for that I think parents, the church, everybody needs to have for kids, because that's the future of the church. We take our grandkids to church, every single, we go on Saturday nights because that works best in their schedule. And, this last Saturday, picking them up from church, and our granddaughter always wants to come over and be in the main sanctuary. And she loves to meet with one of her friends, and then they just run all over the sanctuary, right? Which, okay, maybe that's not the greatest thing because it might annoy some people, but it just gives them a joy for the church. But this last Saturday, all the adults were gone, and there were 7 kids, 6 and younger, all kind of gathered near the stage at our church. And I almost broke down in tears. I'm like, that's the future, right?
Amen.
That's what the church needs to do, is engage those kids, get them comfortable, get them excited about coming to church and excited about their faith. And you can do that through books and podcasts and magazines and videos and any way you can do it to engage them and get them excited about their faith. And, it was just awesome to see, like, all the adults are gone, but there's these 7 little kids talking about who knows what, right? Probably wasn't about Jesus. Maybe it was, but they were there, and it was really cool.
That's amazing. Well, Jesse, like I said, I appreciate this. This has been great. If you would just kind of pray us out, and just pray that the people would be encouraged to and inspired to look into some of these resources, or even just research for themselves, and just really engage their kids and just be led of God, like we all need to be in this topic. So just pray us out.
Yeah, be my honor. Dear Lord Jesus, I just thank you for this time to talk to Britt, and what encouragement it is to my own heart. And I hope it is to people listening as well, Lord, to just hear the power of your story. As he said, the gospel is a story of a young girl who gets visited by this powerful angel, and she's scared, but she's also like, hey, if this is how you called me to do, I will do it, Lord. I will do it, God. I will follow you, and I will raise this son. And Lord, I just pray that we all of us would have that same commitment, that same faith, that no matter what God calls us to do, Lord, that we would follow through, that we would take those steps, that we would trust your plan, and that we would listen for you, Lord, that we would listen to your voice. And Lord, I think about kids and the Christmas season, and just make exciting time for them, where they're just so excited about the presents and the lights and the parties and everything that goes along with that. But also pray that they would, again, see the reason for the season, see that this is really a birthday party for Jesus, God's son, who came to change the world, to change our futures, to give us hope and life and joy and forgiveness and peace, and to be able to live a life in a very chaotic world that isn't fearful, that isn't filled with anxiety, Lord, but that is filled with hope. So I just pray for families this Christmas season, that, again, instead of being pulled away in all the different have-tos of the season, that, again, they would take time to calm their minds, to read the Christmas story, to be in your word, and to be able to celebrate your birth. So Lord, I just thank you for today. I thank you for the kids out there. Pray for the parents, to give them the strength and the courage to raise them, to know you and to follow you, Lord. And for those kids, again, to make their faith their own, to open up their minds and search and dig, because that's really how you created our minds, is to dig into things and figure it out, Lord. And when we do get to there, we see your truth, your absolute truth, Lord. So we thank you for that. We thank you for the season. We thank you for today, Lord. And we just pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.